get started. It is, what is today? Oh my gosh, today is July 16th. And today I'm going to work through Lesson 13, Preparing Files for the Web. Hopefully you're going to work along with me. And in this lesson, we're going to learn how to use the frame tool to create a placeholder for a layout. We're going to create and stylize a button for a website, use layer groups and artboards, optimize design assets for the web, record an action to automate a series of steps, play the action to affect multiple images, save entire layouts and individual assets using export as, and design for multiple screen sizes with multiple artboards. Some of these things that we cover today will be very useful for you in this week's assignment. So I hope if you're not with me today that you'll join or watch this at a later time and work through the lesson with me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, here we are in Photoshop. Oh, and you know what? Let's go back there just for a minute. So sorry, I do want to stop my video. Okay, you should be seeing Photoshop now. Kind of arrange it so that it fills up the screen. And in this lesson, we're going to build some buttons for the home page of an art museum's website. And then we're going to generate some graphic files for each button. We're going to use layer groups to assemble the buttons, and then we'll create actions to prepare a set of images for use as a second set of buttons. So first, let's take a look at the final web design. I have 13End PSD open from the lessons file, Lesson 13. And you'll see that there are 8 buttons at the bottom of this page arranged in 2 rows. So we're going to transform images into buttons for the top row and then use an action to prepare the buttons for the second row. So let's go ahead and open up 13 Start file and rename it right away by going to Save As. I like to rename it as Working. I also like to save it outside that lesson file, so I'll do that here. And I'll click through the dialog box. When you lay out objects for print, web, or mobile device projects, it's common to design the layout before you have the final graphics for it. You can add temporary graphics that you can replace later with final graphics, but this does require some additional file management. You can simplify the design process by creating placeholder shapes called frames during the early stages of design. And as you refine the design and final graphics become available, it's easy then to place the graphics directly into a placeholder frame. You create frames by using the frame tool. A frame can contain an imported graphic, a smart object, or a pixel layer. When you create a frame, it appears in the Layers panel because a frame is like a layer group with a vector mask. Now, document 13 PSD, which we're working on now, contains empty gray boxes. And the gray boxes exist only to help us position new frames that we're going to create in this lesson. When you create your own designs, you can design using the frame tool by itself. So we're going to go up and change some preferences first. So I'll go to, if you're using Windows, you're going to go to Edit, Preferences, Units and Rulers. If you're on a Mac, you'll go to Photoshop CC, Preferences, units, and rulers. We want to choose pixels from the rulers. Sorry about that. As the rulers in the rulers menu. So right here, we want to change this to pixels and then say OK. We want to work in pixels because this is intended to be a web page. Now we'll go to Window and we'll go to O to open up the information panel. This panel displays information dynamically as we move the pointer or make selections. Which information it displays depends on the tool that is selected. We're going to use it to determine the position of the ruler guide based on the Y coordinate and the size of an area that you select based on the width and the height. It's also very handy for seeing the value of colors under the pointer. If the rulers aren't visible right now, go ahead and choose View Rulers. And I have mine showing, so I'll just skip past that. There's a little bit of additional information on customizing the info panel and some other tips like that on page 313 in your book. I'll let you look at that as you have time. Okay, let's add a frame. Frames are easy to add because we create them the same way we'd create a shape like a rectangle or a circle. So in the Tools panel, we want to choose the Frame tool. I'm going to go ahead very first thing and reset my essentials. So it goes back. And then over here in the Tool panel, I'm going to choose the Rectangular Frame tool. And I'm going to drag a rectangular frame over this large gray rectangle at the top of the document. Now the frame appears as a rectangle with an X inside of it. The X indicates that it's not just a vector shape, but a placeholder frame. And as a placeholder, it's ready to contain a graphic at any time. When you finalize the images and the other graphics that go into a document, you can add them to the placeholder frames you've created. So over here in the Layers panel, I want to make sure that frame 1 is selected. That's the one we just, whoops. I want to make sure I didn't add that to the wrong layer. And I believe we're on the correct layer here, even though I don't, let's see if I can, there we go. There's the name, Frame 1. Make sure that that Frame 1 layer is selected and then go up to your File menu and we're going to place a linked file. Then we're going to navigate to our lesson folder. And we want to go into the Art folder. We want to select the North Shore JPEG file and click Place. The JPEG image that we just selected appears inside the selected frame and it's automatically sized to fit the frame. You can also drag an image from Bridge or the desktop and just drop it into a frame in the Photoshop document window, and this will embed the image. To link an image, hold down Alt or Option while you drag it into Photoshop. When a frame is selected in the Layers panel, we can see and edit frame attributes in the Properties panel. You can take advantage of this to change a frame after you've created it. So let's go ahead and with the Frame tool, draw a rectangle between the row 4 gray squares in the bottom of the document. And the exact size and position won't really be important because we're going to edit it. So I'll just draw a rectangle down here with the frame tool. And then with the frame selected, up in the properties panel, and if you're not seeing your properties panel, you can go ahead and go to Window, Properties, and open it. And you're going to put in some values here. So I want the width to be 180 pixels. I want the height to be 180 pixels. I want the X coordinate to be 40. And I want the Y coordinate to be 648. These are setting them in a specific place in our document. And so as I apply these values, the size and position of the frame should match the first gray square. And oh, I see what I have. I had a really wide value there. Okay, so 180 by 180, 40 is the X, 648 is the Y coordinate, and now my frame matches up the first gray square. Now the other 3 squares in this row are the same size, so instead of drawing them all out manually, we can just duplicate them. Go ahead and close this. And it's similar to duplicating a layer, since frames do appear in the Layers panel. So in the Layers panel, let's drag the Frame 1 layer and drop it down on the Create a New Layer button. That gives us a copy, also called Frame 1, should be named Frame 1 Copy. And then with this layer selected, up here in the Properties panel, our coordinates, we want to change the X value to 300. And this is going to move that duplicate frame over the second gray square. Then I'll do the same thing. Just drag this down to copy it. And this time I'll change the X value to 550. And one more time, change this one to 800. Now I've created a complete row of 4 placeholder frames. Now we're going to use a different way to add graphics to our frames. So we'll use the Properties panel now. So let's make sure that the first square is selected, and you'll see that the corresponding layer is selected now. And in the Properties panel, we want to click the Inset Image menu. So if you can't see that, it might be collapsed, but right here is Inset Image. And we want to choose Place from Local Disk Linked. We'll go back to our Art folder, select the Beach JPEG, and choose Place. Now the beach file is scaled to fit the frame. The name of the frame changes to Beach Frame, and the folder path to the placed document is displayed up here in the Properties panel. Let's go ahead and repeat this for the other square frames. So we're going to place North Shore. I'll select the second frame. I'm going to insert from local link and choose North Shore, place it. You can try dragging this if you like, or you can just do keep on using the properties panel. The next one is De Young. And the last one is going to be Main 1. Okay, so all of my frames are filled. Now in the Layers panel, click to select the frame layer thumbnail, the right thumbnail with the link icon of the main one. So there's the link icon. So we're going to make sure that that is selected, and this will select the contents of the frame. If you click on the left thumbnail, you'll select the frame itself. So with the right thumbnail selected, so I want to make sure I'm on the right page, we're going to go up to our edit menu and we want to free transform. And then as you need to, let's just, I'll kind of close this, and you can just drag this out a little bit to improve the composition of that image within the frame. So you can see that you can kind of choose the way you like that to look. I'm gonna try to match up the book. So after you add your graphics to a frame, it's a good idea to go ahead and inspect all of them to make sure that the graphics are well composed inside them. And you can adjust any of them using this same method, free transform. And then I'm going to commit my changes. I like that a lot better. We'll go ahead and take a look at the other three, and they look pretty good. Now, layer groups make it easier to organize and work with layers in complex images, especially when there are sets of layers that work together. So we're going to use layer groups to assemble the layers that make up each button, and then they'll come in handy when we go to export these assets later. The 4 frames that we created are now a basis for buttons. We'll add a label to each, identifying the gallery that it will represent, and then we'll add a drop shadow and a stroke. So if the info panel isn't already open, we can go ahead and go up to info and open it. And position your pointer over the horizontal ruler and drag a ruler guide down until the Y value in the info panel is 795 pixels. So you can see that changing as I move. So we're going to drag this down to 795. And we're going to use this guide to draw a band across the bottom of the image for the label. Now let's zoom in on the first square. Let me do something real quick. I have too many guides here. Actually, let me undo all that. I may need them. There we go. Okay. We'll zoom in on this first square image right here. This is the man on the beach. Get this a little more centered. And we're going to use this image to design our first button. Well, we want to choose beach frame in the layers panel, and then click new layer button at the bottom of the layers panel. Now we have a layer 2, which is just above the beach frame layer. We're going to rename this band. Select the rectangular marquee tool and drag a selection across the bottom of the image as indicated by the guides here. The selection should be 180 pixels wide and 33 pixels high. So make sure everything lines up. You can see that it's 180 right now. So I'm going to make it 180 over 33. And then if I need to, I can kind of reposition that a little bit. Whoops. Okay, trying to, there we go. So I've got that lined up. I'll go down one, there we go. And make sure this selection lines up with the frame along the sides and the bottom. Might go over one more pixel. Oh, there we go. Then we're going to choose Edit Fill. And in the Fill dialog box, we'll choose Color from the Contents menu. And in the color picker, we want to select a dark blue, or if you want to just fill in the values, we'll use the ones from the book, which is red, 25, green, 72, and blue, 121. That gives us kind of a royal blue. And we can say okay, and we can say okay to fill that with blue. Now we have a dark blue band at the bottom of the image, and we'll add some text. So I'm going to deselect by going up to my select menu or using my keyboard shortcuts and select the horizontal type tool. In the option bar, we're going to, let me close this so it's not distracting. We're going to choose Myriad Pro as our Minion Pro, so let me. I have so many choices. We'll make this regular. We'll choose 18 as our font size, 18 points. We want our anti-aliasing to be strong. Sorry, anti-aliasing to be strong. The alignment to be center, and the color to be white. And in the center of that blue band, go ahead and click and type in Gallery 1. Let's do all caps. And then if you need to, you can use the Move tool. It looks to me like it's a little bit big. Oh, it's still 30. There we go. There we go. And now I'll kind of straighten that out in the center. There's my center line. And now over in the layers panel, let's select the gallery 1 and the band layer, and then we'll group these. So select them both by holding down the shift key. And go up to layer. And you want to group layers. Let's go ahead and rename this by double clicking and name it Gallery 1. Then go ahead and expand the group, and you can see that the layers that we selected and made into a group are indented, indicating that these two layers are part of this group. Now we're going to drag this Gallery 1 layer group up so that it is above all of the frame layers. And since we've done quite a lot of work, let's save our work right now. So we've designed the label for one button, and we could do the same steps again and again to create the band and the text for each of the other buttons, but it's going to be faster to duplicate the layer group that we just created and then edit the copies as we need to. So in the layers panel, we want to make sure that the Gallery 1 layer group is selected. Select the Move tool. Make sure that Auto Select is not selected up here. And then with the Move tool, hold down the Alt key if you're using Windows or the Option key if you're on a Mac. As you drag the Gallery 1 button to the right, let me just scooch this over. And then drop it when it snaps into alignment. So Alt or Option, drag, and when it snaps into place here, you can let go and drop it in. So we've made a copy of Gallery 1, and then our new layer group that our copy is highlighted or selected over here in the layers panel. So we can either, let's go ahead and rename this now and just rename it Gallery 2, since that's what it's going to be. And then I'll go back over here. And I can do the same thing, holding down Alt or Option. I'm going to drag this group, Gallery 2, into place. I'm going to go ahead and rename it, and I'll do it one more time. Hold down Alt or Option, move my button into place here. Looks like mine is just a hair large. Hopefully you won't have that problem. And then I'll just go ahead and rename this Gallery 4. Okay, now, so we've got our copies in each square. Now I want to scooch back over here, choose my horizontal type tool. I want to rename this 2. Then I'll scooch over here. Oops. My goodness. Go back there. There we go. Horizontal type tool. gallery 3. All right, so now I have all of my gallery buttons renamed. And I've already renamed the layer groups, so I don't have to go through this next step. You can collapse these. And now we're going to move each button image into the layer group. So in the layers panel, we want to drag the beach frame layer into the gallery 1 layer group below gallery 1 and the band layer. So maybe we do want to have these collapsed. So I'll just do that one at a time. So beach frame layer, we will drag it up and put it underneath the gallery 1 and the band. So the picture is the third thing down. Then I can collapse this, open up gallery 2. Gallery 2 gets the North Shore frame. Collapse that, open up gallery 3. Gallery 3 gets DeYoung. Collapse that, open up gallery 4, and gallery 4 gets main 1. Let me make sure I got that one in there. Oh, wait. Yeah, beach frame is in there. Did I get that one on 2? Oh, you know what I did? Gallery 1's supposed to have beach. Yep, it's got it. Okay, never mind. All right, so we've got them all collapsed now. And now we're gonna add a drop shadow and a stroke to make each of the buttons look a little bit better. So we'll go ahead and select the gallery 1 group layer in the layers panel, and we'll click add layer style button down here at the bottom, the FX, and we'll choose drop shadow. Let me scroll on over here so you can see this. And then in this layer style dialog box, we'll adjust the opacity. We're going to make it about 27%. We're going to make the distance 9 pixels and the spread 19% and the size 18 pixels. You can see the changes take place as I do that. And then with this dialog box, layer style dialog box still open, we're going to go ahead and select stroke on the left. Make sure that you click on the word, not just the word or not just the checkbox, but the actual whole line that says stroke so that you can make some other changes. And we'll make sure that the size is 1 pixel. And we want the position to be inside. And then we'll click this color swatch, sample the blue band, and say OK to apply that. And then we'll say OK to apply both layer styles. And now we have the drop shadow and the stroke appearing in the buttons layer group in the document and also in the layers panel. Now in the layers panel, go ahead and position the pointer over the FX icon next to Gallery 1 layer group. So right here. And then hold down Alt if you're working with Windows, or Option, and if you're working on a Mac, and click and drag it to Gallery 2. You just copied the layer effects from Gallery 1 to Gallery 2. We'll go ahead and repeat that to Gallery 3 and Gallery 4. So now they all have the same effects. In the Layers panel, excuse me, I want to expand the button art layer group. And then go ahead and click on the eye icon for the navigation layer to make it visible. And then we can collapse the button art layer group. Let's go ahead and fit this on screen. Now, this layer represents the navigation among all the sections of the museum website. Let's save the file. And then move on. Okay, an action is a set of one or more commands that you record and then you can play back to apply to a single file or a batch of files. I'm going to go ahead and take the guides off that so we can see it. Create an action that prepares a set of images to serve as buttons for additional galleries on the web page that we're designing. So we'll start by recording an action that will resize an image, change the canvas size, add layer styles, so that the additional buttons match the ones that we've already created. We can use the Actions panel to record, play, edit, and delete individual actions. This can be a real time saver if you find yourself doing the same things over and over. You can use the Actions panel to save and load certain action files. There are 4 images in the Buttons folder that will serve as the basis for new gallery buttons on our website. And the images are large, so the first thing we're going to do is resize them to match the existing buttons. We'll perform each of the steps on the Gallery 5 JPEG file as we record the action. And then we'll play the action to make the same changes on the other images in the folder automatically. So let's go ahead and open up the Lesson 13 Buttons folder. In this folder, you want to open up Gallery 5 by double-clicking or just saying open, and open that up in Photoshop. I can now, I'm going to close a couple of these. There we go. Now we'll open up Actions by going up to Window and choosing Actions. And you can see here that I have a long list, yours probably isn't quite this long, of Photoshop actions. And then we're going to go ahead and choose, oops, we'll close the default. Okay, this might be open. These are default actions, so we can close it. And I'm going to go, some of these I've purchased, so just know that like filters and things like that, brushes, you can purchase actions for Photoshop. We're going to create our own though for this particular exercise. oops, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this one because I believe that's from previously. All right, so we'll create a new action set and call it buttons. And then say OK. Now Photoshop comes with, as we saw earlier, some pre-recorded actions in the default. And you can go ahead and check these out sometime. After you've worked through this lesson, you'll know how to run them. You can use action sets like this. So the default actions are all the ones that came preloaded. And then these other ones are other action sets that I've purchased. So then within buttons, let's go ahead and create a new action by clicking the little square with the folded up corner. And we're going to name this resizing and stylizing images. Styling, not stylizing. And click record. Now, at this point, every change that we make to this file will be recorded in this action. So you don't have to rush. It's not like a video recording. So just go ahead and take your time, because they're not recording here in real time. They're just recording steps as you complete them. So first thing we're going to do is resize and sharpen this image. So we'll go up to image, image size. We'll make sure that resample is checked here. And for the width, we want to make sure that pixels are our unit of measurement. And then we'll change the width to 180. You want to just confirm that the height has changed to 180. And it should, because the original proportions, which was square, are preserved by using this link, the constrained aspect ratio link. And that is selected by default. Then we'll say OK. Next, we'll apply a filter, a sharpen filter. So we'll go up to filter, sharpen, and we'll go to smart sharpen. We'll apply an amount of 100% and a radius of 1 pixel. Then say OK. And we're going to make a couple of additional changes, but the background, we're working on a background layer and that's locked, so we need to convert it to a regular layer. So we'll just go ahead and double click the background layer name over here in the layers panel. And then we're going to rename this button and we're going to click OK again. Now we've converted this to a regular layer. We didn't add anything, we just created a new, or we just converted it. Now we can change the canvas size and we can add layer styles, which we weren't allowed to do when it was a background layer. So we'll go again up to image. We're still recording, see that red button. Canvas size. And we want to make sure that our unit of measurement is set to pixels. We want to change the width to 220 and the height to 220. You have to do that each manually. And then click on the center square to ensure that the canvas expands evenly on all sizes. Click right here and then say OK. Then we're going to apply a drop shadow by going up to Layer, Layer Style, and Drop Shadow. We'll change our opacity. We'll put it at 27%. We want our angle to be 120. Our distance to be 9 pixels, our spread to be 19%, and our size to be 18 pixels. Don't close your layer style dialog box yet. Go ahead though and choose stroke. Let's make sure we're at 1 pixel for the size. The position is inside. And if you don't have that blue swatch that we had earlier, you're going to click that and sample the blue band like we did earlier. And then say OK. And that applies both layer styles now. Then we want to go up to File, Save As. Make sure Photoshop is the format and click Save. If the format dialog box opens, just click OK. Now we will close the file. And we'll stop recording. So the action that we just recorded is now saved in the button set in the action panel. So you can click and look at everything that you just did. And all this is saved as resizing and styling images within the buttons action set. So applying actions is a time-saving process for performing routine tasks. You can streamline your work even more by applying actions to multiple files all at once. So we're going to apply the action that we've created to the 3 remaining images. So we'll go to File, Open. We'll go back to our Buttons folder. Either Control Select if you're using Windows or Command Select if you're using a Mac. Gallery 6, 7, and 8. And then click Open. Now go up to your File menu and you want to go to the Automate selection. And within the Automate menu, you want to choose Batch. When the Batch dialog box opens up, want to make sure that the set, we want buttons and we want actions. We want the action that was just recorded, and usually the last one that you used is going to be the one that's set by default, but you can see that there are all the other action sets, and the only action right now inside the buttons set is this resizing and styling images. Now from, let's see, from the source menu, you want to choose Opened Files. You want to make none for the destination, and then you want to click OK. Now, I'm going to cancel this right now because I have some other files open. So let me just go ahead and close these others so that I only have, there we go, the 3 button files open. Otherwise, it would apply all the changes to those other open files, and I didn't want that to happen. Destination none, so we can click OK, and Photoshop is going to play all the actions, apply all the steps to all the files that are open. And because we saved it and we closed it while we were recording the action, all of those steps were saved as a PSD file in the original folder, and then everything was closed. So now we're back to the Start workspace. But the 4 additional button images that we just created are ready to be placed into the design. Everything is ready to go. So if we have the Start 13, let's see, 13 working PSD files in our recent workspace, we'll go ahead and click this to open it. And then in the Layers panel, we want to select a layer group name or the logo layer. So let's see. We'll just go ahead and click the logo layer. And this makes sure that the files that we're about to place are not added inside any layer groups, because all new layers are going to be added above the selected layer. So then we'll go to our File menu, and we want to place embedded. We're going to place these as embedded smart objects. So in that dialog box that pops up, we'll navigate to our Buttons folder, and then we want to double click the Gallery 5 PSD file. Photoshop places this in the center of the working 13 PSD file, but that's not where we want it, so we're going to go ahead and move it. We will drag this into position below Gallery 1. And I'm going to need to show my guides again. So I will position this right below Gallery 1. You can press Enter or Return to commit those changes. Oops, what just happened there? Do that again. Open. Place. Oops. Let's go back here. Go File. Place embedded. I'll choose the Gallery 5. Place. I'll drop that in there. Now we can go ahead and place the remaining 3. So I'll go up to File, Place Embedded, choose Gallery 6 PSD. Make those changes. Make sure you choose the PSD files. And you can see that everything got resized and all of our actions went through. All right, save your work and close your file. Now, if you're designing a website, or if you're designing user interfaces for mobile devices, you might need to create separate image files for buttons and other content. And in Photoshop, you can use the Export As feature to export an entire document or individual layers to web and mobile-friendly formats, including PNG, JPEG, GIF, or SVG. In addition to being able to export multiple layers to individual files at once, Export As makes it possible to export to multiple sizes at once if you need to produce sets of images for low and high resolution displays. You may need to coordinate different ideas for a single design or design variations for different display sizes. And this is easier when you use artboards, which are like multiple canvases in a single Photoshop document. You can also use Export As to export entire artboards. With Export As, you control what gets exported by selecting artboards or layers in the Layers panel. We're going to use artboards to adapt the design of the museum website for a different screen size, and then we'll export both designs at once. So in the Photoshop Start workspace, click Open, and navigate to the Lesson 13 folder, and then open the file 13 Museo PSD. Choose File, Save As, and we're going to rename this 13 Museo _ working PSD. This is a web page that's being adapted for responsive web design so that it works well on display sizes from desktops down to smartphones. We'll select all layers, and then we'll choose Layer, New, and we want to choose Artboard from Layers. Now we're going to name this one Desktop and click OK. Now the artboard name appears above the new artboard and also on its artboard group in the Layers panel. Make sure that the artboard tool is selected. And it's grouped over with the Move tool in your Tools panel. So underneath here, you'll see the Artboard tool. Then Alt, if you're on Windows, or Option, if you're on a Mac, Alt or Option click the Add Artboard button to the right of the artboard to duplicate both the desktop and its contents. So right here, I'm going to Alt or Option And when you see that the double arrows, you'll add a new, you'll duplicate the desktop artboard and everything in it. Then this copy that we just made, we're going to rename it iPhone. Now in the Properties panel, we're going to click the Set Artboard to Preset menu, and we're going to choose iPhone 6. So 876, we'll choose that. And that artboard preset, apply the pixel dimensions of an iPhone 6, 7, or 8, which is 750 pixels wide by 1334 pixels tall. This allows us to develop a design for this iPhone size using the elements of the desktop design. It really makes it easier to maintain design consistency since you have both the desktop option and the mobile option in the same document. So we'll save our work. And you can see how if you open up this, you can see how all the different layers are. You can transform the sizes, you can move them around, you can make them look good on mobile. So now we have different artboards for desktop and smartphone display sizes. And so the next task is to fit the desktop sized objects within the width of the smartphone pixel display. The smartphone display's pixel dimensions. My goodness, that's a mouthful. We'll expand the iPhone artboard, and then we're going to shift select the first and the last layers in the artboard, not the artboard name itself. Oops, where'd that go? So not this, but everything else inside it. Then we'll go up to Edit, Free Transform, and in the option bar, we want to click the Toggle Reference Point checkbox to select it. And that is right here. This makes the reference point visible inside the transformation bounding box and makes it possible to reposition the reference point. Go ahead and select the top left corner of the reference point location option. So now scaling, rotating, or any other transformation will now be performed from the top left corner of the transformation box, or the bounding box, instead of the center, until that transformation is committed. Now make sure you have the link icon selected as it is, so that the selected layers are going to scale proportionally. And then for the width, let's go ahead and enter in a pixel dimension, which will be the width of an iPhone, which is 726 pixels. Then go ahead and commit I want to make sure I did all this right. Yep. We'll commit our changes. We have that linked. Okay, perfect. And just click it oops. Let me go back one step. I'm sorry. I didn't want to actually commit the settings. I just wanted to change those. So I'm going to go back, sorry, and I'm going to go ahead and do that again. I have everything, edit, I'm going to free transform. So I'll make my changes here. I will make my changes here, 726 pixels. There we go. Now I don't really want to, I just want to apply the settings. So go ahead and press enter or return. And that applies the values up in the option bar. And if I did that again, it would apply the transformation. Now go ahead and position the pointer in here. And shift drag all these layers down until we can see the entire logo at the top. All right, then we'll go ahead and enter to apply those transformations and exit the free transform mode. And then we will deselect all of our layers. Now let's just choose the logo layer and transform it with free transform. Go ahead and drag the bottom right handle and go ahead and drag that until the transformation values, excuse me, indicate that the logo is 672 pixels wide. And this matches all the other elements. And then go ahead and press enter or return. And this will make the logo a little more readable on a smartphone screen. Then back over in the layers panel, we'll choose banner art. We'll also hold down the shift key or the command or control key to choose left column and right column layers. So with all three layers selected, hold down the shift key and select the move tool, and then drag all those layers down until the top is even with the top of the blue button stack. Oops. Ooh. Just happened there. Line that up. And I'm sorry, the top of this is in line with that blue button stack. Now we're going to take the two column layout and make each column fill the width of the artboard. But we'll need to accommodate them by making the artboard a little bit taller. So go back up and choose the iPhone artboard in the layers panel. And then with the artboard tool, let's go ahead and drag the bottom handle it go? To want to make it 2,800 pixels tall. I'm not seeing the bottom of the. Oops. Tool. Oops, there's the. Sorry, I'm struggling a little bit with this. Nope, don't want to do that. I'm on page 337 where I want to create a taller artboard. And I do have the iPhone artboard selected in the layers panel. I have the artboard tool selected, but I'm not getting the bottom handle. So what I'm going to do instead is just in the properties panel, I'm going to make it 2,800 pixels tall. So I'm going to go and do a little workaround until I have time to figure out why I'm not seeing my handles. And I noticed that in my view menu, my guides were not showing up. Now I'll go ahead. So now my artboard for the iPhone layer, the artboard layer group is longer, 2,800 pixels. And over in the layers panel, I'll select the right column group and transform it. Free transform. Up in the option bar, I want to make sure that that toggle reference point checkbox is still selected. And then I want to select the top right square of that reference point location option. Make sure that my maintain aspect ratio, the link button, is still selected. And then for the width, I'll enter in 672 pixels. That gives me a wider column. I'll go ahead and press enter or return to apply the new width. And then with my pointer positioned inside this free transform bounding box, I want to shift drag the layer group down until the transformation values indicate a vertical move of 1,200 pixels. So the Y value up in the option bar should read about 1680. So let's keep going. I'm going to stop and scroll so we can see what we're doing here. 1680. Close enough. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter or return. to commit and complete that transformation. Then I'll choose my left column in the layer group in the layers panel and choose Edit Free Transform. Make sure that toggle reference point is checkbox is selected. Choose the top left square of the reference point location option. Make sure the link is still selected, and we'll enter in again 672. We'll hit enter or return just once to apply the new width, and then we'll go ahead and hit enter or return again to commit and exit the transformation. Now you can look at this and feel free to rearrange the vertical spacing, the positioning to however it looks best for you. And then we'll choose View, Fit on Screen, so that we can see both of the artboards, and then go ahead and save your work. So oops. What we've done here is we've adapted a desktop size multi-column web page layout for a single column smartphone size layouts. And we have both layouts on 2 separate artboards in one Photoshop document. Now, when it's time to have a client review your designs, you can use the Export As command to easily export any artboard, layer, or layer group into its own file. So we're going to export the complete desktop and smartphone artboards, and then we'll export the layers of each artboard to their own folder. So first we'll go up to File, Export, Export As. This command is going to export each whole artboard so that you're going to see an artboard in the list on the left side of the Export As dialog box. And here you see those. You can preview the exported dimensions and the file size of each item, and the preview is determined by the settings on the right side of the Export As dialog box. In the list on the left, make sure that the iPhone artboard is selected, and then set the Export As options to the following. In the Scale All selection, oops, that's over here on the left, sorry. Want to make sure that the size is set to 1x, one time, and the suffix field is empty. In the File Settings section, make sure the size is set to 100%, and the suffix is empty. Oh, I'm sorry, I just repeated myself. You can tell this is a long lesson. In the File Settings section, we're going to choose JPEG from the Format menu, and we want it at 80% quality. And then we want to convert to sRGB. So we want to check that in the color space section, and we can leave everything else at defaults. Then before exporting, we're going to click the desktop artboard to select it, and we're going to apply the same settings. So the size will be 1 time, no suffix. We'll export this as a JPEG and at 100%, and we will reduce our quality to 80%. We'll make sure that it's converting to sRGB, and then leave everything the same. Now we can export all, where it asks, where do we want to export? We want to navigate to the Lesson 13 folder. We want to double click the Assets folder. And then click Save or Open. Now, move over to the desktop or bridge and navigate. I'm going to navigate to my Lesson 13 folder. And there you'll see, the desktop JPEG and the iPhone JPEG representing each artboard. So you could send these off to a client for review. Now let's go back to Photoshop. We're almost done, folks. Hang in with me. This is something you'll want to do this next week. Exporting layers as assets using Export As. So as long as the client approves the design, you can then use Export As to create assets for each layer on an artboard, like images or buttons. And these assets can be used by a web or application developer who's going to execute the code in design, or execute the design in code. So in the Layers panel over here, we want to shift click all the layers of the desktop artboard. And in the Layers panel menu, choose Export As. Now in this Export As dialog box, each layer is listed separately because each layer is going to export separately. In this dialog box, we're going to use the same settings that we did previously. So one time, no suffix, JPEG format, 80% quality, convert to sRGB. Then we'll click Export All. And we want to navigate to the Assets desktop folder and open. So now we've exported all of those assets for the desktop artboard into a single folder. Then we can we can duplicate those steps. So I'm going to select, shift select all the layers within the iPhone artboard, go up to the panel menu here, Export As. I see all of my layers on the left. I'll check my settings. And export them to the Lesson 13 iPhone assets. And the last thing we'll do is we'll check out what we just did in Bridge. So I've just opened Bridge by going File, Browse and Bridge, I'll go ahead and navigate to the Lesson 13 folder. And inside the iPhone assets, you'll see that I have, and I see one mistake I made. I only had the button art selected. I was wondering about that in the export as. Make sure you have all of those layers on the left selected, because only one was converted to a JPEG. The others are at the default PNG. So when you go through this, make sure you, when that export as dialog box opens, make sure you shift click all of the left side layers for each artboard. All right, now we're done with this long web preparing files for the web lesson. Thanks so much for being with me, and have a great day.